My fiancée slept with a stranger while drunk on Black Friday deals, so I walked away before the wedding and let karma do the rest. I'm a 29-year-old guy, and I genuinely thought I was marrying my best friend. Tessa wasn't just my fiancée, she was my person. The one I could vent to about a rough day at work, the one who'd fall asleep on my chest mid-movie, the one who made burnt pancakes every Sunday and called them crispy love tokens. We met at a mutual friend's holiday party 5 years ago. She was wearing this ridiculous snowflake headband and beating everyone at charades. I was immediately drawn to her energy. Bright, chaotic, kind of wild. I was quieter, more grounded. Somehow, we clicked. We both came from nothing. Working-class parents, hand-me-down childhoods, never really had the luxury of dreaming too big. But together, we started building something that felt like ours. We made spreadsheets for saving, meal prepped to avoid takeout, shared one beat-up car until we could afford a second. I remember her grinning when we signed the lease on our first one-bedroom apartment, saying, "Look at us, doing grown-up stuff without a clue." We planned every detail of our life like a team. Our wedding fund was a joint savings account we treated like sacred ground. Every deposit, no matter how small, felt like a promise. We even had a shared Pinterest board titled Future Forever. I genuinely believed there was no version of life where she wasn't in it. And maybe that's why I missed the signs. Because when you build everything with someone, it never crosses your mind that they might take a sledgehammer to it, especially not over a shopping trip. The night it all started felt so normal. We had leftover stuffing, watched Home Alone, and she kissed me goodbye like everything was fine. "Wish me luck," she laughed. "I'm going to war for Black Friday deals." I didn't know I was already losing everything. Tessa took Black Friday more seriously than most people take their careers. She'd start prepping weeks in advance, tracking deals, comparing prices, making color-coded spreadsheets and maps of store layouts. She called it the Super Bowl of savings and treated it like a national holiday. Every year, she and her work friends would team up and plan out their routes with military precision. Normally, I'd tag along for the midnight mayhem, but this year, I had to be up early to tour a wedding venue we'd both fallen in love with online. She kissed me on the cheek before leaving, bouncing with excitement. "You'll thank me when we're sipping mimosas in our fully furnished living room," she grinned, flashing her phone full of coupons like it was a trophy. I laughed, told her to be safe, and curled up on the couch to binge-watch shows until I dozed off. Everything felt normal, familiar. Around 1:30 a.m., I woke up and checked my phone. No texts, no calls. I figured she was too busy elbowing her way through crowds and forgot. Not unusual. By 3 a.m., I tried calling. Straight to voicemail. Still, no panic. Maybe her battery died. Maybe she was at that one Target with awful reception. But when the sun came up and the apartment was still empty, I felt that first pinch in my chest, the kind that whispers something's wrong, even if your brain is still trying to be rational. I made coffee, kept checking my phone, opened our shared wedding to-do doc just to distract myself. Nothing felt off in the room, but something felt wrong in my gut. At 11:47 a.m., the front door finally opened, and when I saw her face, messy hair, bloodshot eyes, shopping bags dragging behind her like weights, my heart sank in a way I didn't yet understand. I stared at her like I was seeing a stranger in my own apartment. Tessa stepped in slowly, like the doorframe was holding her up. She dropped the bags with a clumsy thud, kicked off her boots, and muttered, "I'm so dead tired," without even glancing at me. Her hoodie was half-zipped, makeup smudged like it had been wiped off and reapplied in a rush, and her hands were trembling as she reached for the coffee pot. Except it was empty. I got up quietly. "You okay?" I asked, trying not to let the worry crack my voice. She didn't answer, just opened the fridge, stared inside like she forgot what food was, then closed it again. "Too much champagne," she finally said, wincing. "The girls went a little overboard. I lost track of time." That explanation could have worked if she didn't look like she'd just walked out of a disaster zone. And it hit me all at once. The silence, the way her phone had been off, her half-dazed eyes, the fact that she hadn't texted once. I asked, "Where'd you end up crashing?" She blinked, as if that question hadn't occurred to her. At Kayla's, I think, or maybe Jenna's. Honestly, everything's a blur." That word, blur, sliced through me. She stumbled into the bathroom and locked the door without another word. I stood there, watching the steam slip under the crack as the shower turned on. I should have been relieved she was home, but all I felt was a cold, creeping nausea that something had broken while she was gone, and I couldn't name it yet. From behind the door, I heard her crying softly, and for the first time in 5 years, I didn't feel like part of the we anymore. She stayed in the shower for nearly an hour. By the time she emerged, wrapped in a towel and barely looking at me, the air between us had changed. Not tense, not angry, just hollow. Like we were both pretending nothing was wrong because naming it might make it real. She mumbled something about being too wiped out for the venue tour and curled up on the couch like she was trying to disappear inside herself. I sat beside her, unsure if I should press or just let her rest. She didn't lean into me like she normally would. Didn't ask about the coffee I made, or the breakfast I reheated twice. Her eyes stayed on her phone, thumb scrolling aimlessly, even though the screen was off. I gently reached for her hand, just reflex, 5 years of routine, but she pulled it back so fast it felt like recoil. Something in my chest cracked a little. I told myself she was just exhausted, maybe hungover, maybe embarrassed she blacked out and didn't remember much. But as the hours passed, her energy shifted from fragile to defensive. Every word I said felt like a threat to her peace. So I stopped trying to fill the silence. That night, I heard her crying again. This time, not in the shower, but in the bedroom, with the door cracked just enough to carry the sound to where I sat on the floor, pretending to read. I wanted to go in, to comfort her, to ask what happened, but something in me hesitated. It wasn't just that she was sad. It was that she didn't want me to be the one helping her through it. And I think that was the first moment I realized she might be hiding something she didn't want me to forgive. 3 days later, I decided to surprise her with lunch. I'd picked up her favorite, chicken shawarma wrap, extra garlic sauce, and a mango smoothie, because I figured maybe normalcy would help reset whatever weird fog had taken over since Black Friday. Her office wasn't far, and I knew her lunch break was around 1 p.m. I even called ahead to make sure she'd be there. I wasn't expecting a party, just a smile, or at least a thank you. What I got instead was a rumor that shattered everything. I was walking past the break room when I heard 2 women whispering. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but one of them mentioned her name, and I froze. "She didn't tell you?" one said, hushed. "She went home with some guy that night." "What? No way." "I swear, she was blackout. Said she woke up in some rando's bed with no memory of how she got there." I felt like the hallway was spinning. My hands went numb. I clutched the drink carrier so tight the smoothie cup cracked. I didn't even realize I was holding my breath until I backed away and exhaled in a shaky burst. I left the food on the receptionist's desk without saying a word. Then I got in my car, parked a block away, and sat in silence. Everything inside me wanted to believe they were wrong, that they were gossiping, exaggerating, twisting something innocent into scandal. But deep down, I knew. I knew. I thought back to how she looked that morning, hungover, vague, avoidant. I thought about the crying, the tension, the way she couldn't say whose place she stayed at. And for the first time in 5 years, I wondered if the person I loved had just quietly broken us, and hoped I'd never find out. That night, I sat across from her on the couch, pretending I wasn't unraveling inside. She was wearing one of my hoodies, curled up with a blanket and her laptop, scrolling through wedding centerpiece ideas like we hadn't just hit an iceberg. I watched her for a few minutes, unsure how to begin. My stomach was a knot of questions I didn't want the answers to, but I also couldn't keep swallowing suspicion. Finally, I said, "Tess, are you sure nothing weird happened that night?" She looked up too quickly, like she'd rehearsed the denial. "What do you mean?" "I mean, you were gone the whole night, no texts, no calls. You came back looking like you walked through a tornado. Did anything happen?" She blinked, just once. Then, "No, just drinks and shopping. We got separated a few times. It was chaotic. I lost track of time." I held her gaze. "You stayed at Kayla's?" "Yeah, or maybe Jenna's. I don't even remember where we ended up crashing, to be honest." She gave a dry laugh. Champagne kind of erased half the night. There was this slight tremble in her voice. So small, someone else might have missed it. But I didn't. Not after 5 years. I said quietly, "Because I overheard some people at your office talking." Her expression shifted. Not to guilt, not even fear, but anger. "You're spying on me now?" The speed with which she flipped the narrative stunned me. She slammed the laptop shut and stood up like I'd accused her of something unforgivable. "I can't believe you'd snoop around my job instead of trusting me." I didn't say anything, because deep down, I realized I hadn't even asked a real question, and she'd just given me a very real answer. She didn't talk to me for the rest of that night. She went to bed early, curled away from me, and pretended to be asleep when I came in. I lay next to her for hours, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound of her breathing. Steady, distant, like she wasn't just across the mattress but already miles away. I kept replaying her reaction. Not guilt, not remorse, just rage that I dared to ask. The next morning, she was quiet. Too quiet. She made toast but didn't eat it, sipped coffee but barely looked up. And then, like she couldn't hold it in any longer, she said, "I need to tell you something." She wouldn't meet my eyes. I think I might have kissed someone that night. I don't remember the whole thing, but I woke up in a stranger's apartment. I was still dressed. Nothing seemed wrong, but I was drunk, way too drunk. I didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't blink. She kept going like she was racing to the finish line of a story she hated telling. I freaked out. I left before he woke up. I told the girls I'd Ubered home. God, I didn't know how to say it. "You lied to my face," I said, not loud, just enough to cut the air between us. She started crying. "It was a mistake. I didn't mean to. I don't even know his name. I love you. I was just overwhelmed. It was stupid. It meant nothing." But to me, it meant everything. Because that night, while I was at home dreaming about our future, she was somewhere else, killing it in silence. I got up, walked into the bedroom, and closed the door behind me. Not to shut her out, but because I needed to hear what silence felt like again. The next few days felt like being trapped in someone else's relationship. She flipped so fast from guilt to defense, I could barely keep up. One minute, she was sobbing on the kitchen floor, saying she'd do anything to earn my trust back. The next, she was slamming drawers and snapping, "It's not like I planned this." Are you really going to throw away 5 years over one stupid mistake? I didn't answer right away, and that seemed to enrage her even more. She started rewriting history. You've been distant for months. Always working late, zoning out, I felt alone. Like it was my fault she ended up in a stranger's bed after a night of champagne and midnight shopping. Like somehow me being tired after 10-hour shifts justified betrayal. Her mom called out of nowhere too, somehow already looped in. She's hurting, she said. She made a mistake. Don't be a coward now. Marriage is hard. I couldn't believe it. They weren't just asking me to forgive, they were shaming me for being hurt. And then her friends started texting. Be a man about this. Don't throw away something good over a blackout night. Everyone slips. You're lucky she told you. I felt like I was going insane. What was supposed to be my heartbreak turned into her redemption arc. I was just the background character expected to applaud her bravery for confessing. That weekend, I slept on the couch. Not because I was mad, but because I couldn't lie next to someone who was already rebuilding her version of the story without me. I kept telling myself maybe I was overreacting, but in the quiet, late at night, I couldn't shake this feeling. I wasn't being asked to forgive her. I was being asked to erase myself. I was folding laundry when the message came through, an Instagram DM from someone I didn't know. No profile picture, no name. Just the words, check your fiancée's texts from that night. She wasn't blackout, she planned it. My heart kicked into overdrive. I stared at the message for a full minute before I responded with a single word. Who? They replied almost instantly. One of her co-workers. I saw the texts. She said she wanted one last wild night before marriage, said she was feeling trapped. I felt cold all over. I hadn't asked for screenshots, but they sent them anyway, and there it was, her conversation with someone named Callie. Tessa, honestly, I just want one more night of chaos before I get locked down. Callie, girl, you better not actually do it, LOL. Tessa, no promises. If he knew how boring things have been lately. I sat down hard on the edge of the bed, phone shaking in my hand. This wasn't a drunken accident, this wasn't a blur. It was premeditated. She wanted the thrill. She wanted the danger. And she had the audacity to come back, lie to my face, and then cry about being the one in pain. Suddenly, the pieces fit together. The strange defensiveness, the crying in the shower, the carefully chosen vagueness about the night. She didn't forget. It just sounded better if she pretended she did. I didn't reply to the anonymous sender. I didn't tell her I knew, not yet. I needed to see how far she was willing to take the lie. And more importantly, I needed to figure out what I was going to do with the version of her I could never unknow. We met at the coffee shop where we'd had our first date. Her idea. She texted me that morning saying, "Please, just talk to me. 1 hour. I'll do the rest." I didn't reply, but I showed up. Not because I wanted to fix anything. I just needed to look her in the eye and see if the person I'd loved for 5 years was still in there, or if she'd been replaced by someone I didn't recognize. She wore the same red scarf she wore on our first date. I don't know if it was intentional or if she just forgot, but it felt like a costume. "Thank you for coming," she said softly, sitting across from me with shaking hands. "I know I messed up. I'm not asking for a miracle. I'm just asking for a second chance." I pulled the engagement ring out of my coat pocket and set it gently on the table between us. Her breath caught. "Wait, what are you—" "You should sell it," I said quietly. "Maybe fund your next wild night." She froze. Her eyes filled instantly, lips parting like she had something to say but couldn't find the script. I leaned forward, voice steady. "You didn't just cheat on me, Tess. You killed the version of me that trusted you. You lied, gaslit, made me doubt my own sanity. And all for what? One more night of chaos? Tears slid down her cheeks, but I didn't feel moved. She tried whispering. It didn't mean anything. But it meant everything to me, I said. She reached for my hand, and I pulled it away. Then I stood up, nodded once, and walked out the door, leaving the ring, and whatever we used to be, sitting in the ruins of who we pretended we were. I moved into my brother's guest room that same night, with 2 duffel bags, a laptop, and a heart that felt like it had been hollowed out and scraped clean. The first morning, I woke up disoriented, staring at a ceiling that wasn't mine, next to a wall of boxes I never unpacked. I didn't eat much, didn't talk much either. My brother tried, left me food, made dumb jokes, handed me a 6-pack without saying anything. But even the silence felt loud. It's strange how grief doesn't just hit you once. It creeps in waves. I kept thinking I should be angrier, that I should be slashing old photos, tossing out every trace of her. But instead, I just felt heavy, like I was mourning a death no one else could see. I started going for long drives with no destination. Sometimes I'd end up in parking lots, just staring at nothing. One night I found myself at the park near our old apartment, the one where she used to read on Sunday mornings while I played guitar on the bench. I sat there until it got dark, then darker. Let the cold settle into my bones because, weirdly, it matched how I felt inside. The worst part wasn't the betrayal. It was realizing I no longer knew who I was without her. I had spent so long building a future that depended on we that I forgot how to function as me. I remember looking at myself in the mirror one night and thinking, she burned everything to the ground. Now, it's just you, standing in the ashes. What now? I didn't have the answer then, but something in me whispered, breathe. That's the first step. It had been 3 weeks since I'd seen her when she showed up at my job. I was in the middle of a staff meeting when one of the interns leaned in and whispered, there's someone outside with flowers and a sign. I thought they were joking, until I walked to the front office and saw her standing there in the lobby, holding a bouquet of sunflowers and a white poster board that read, "Still yours, if you'll have me." Everyone turned. Phones came out. People thought it was romantic, sweet, movie level. I wanted to disappear. I walked her outside as gently as I could, avoiding eye contact with every curious coworker. She looked thinner, paler, like she hadn't been sleeping either. Her voice trembled when she said, "I've been going to therapy. I've been writing letters to myself. I know I messed up, but I'm trying to fix it." She held out the flowers. I didn't take them. "I'm not here to embarrass you," she said softly. "I just want to show you I'm not giving up on us." I stared at her for a long time. The same eyes I used to kiss goodnight. The same hands that used to trace maps across my back when we dreamed of forever. "You're not fighting for us," I said. "You're fighting for the version of me who still believed in you, and he's gone." She blinked, stunned. "I'm not angry," I added. "Just done. I won't hate you, but I won't let you rewrite this story as if you were the victim." She looked like she wanted to scream, cry, and run all at once. I turned around and walked back into the building. The flowers stayed behind, wilting quietly on the bench like the apology I never needed. The day we were supposed to get married, I woke up at 5 a.m. and didn't even reach for my phone. No last-minute texts, no lingering doubts, just silence. Instead of tux fittings and flower deliveries, I packed a small duffel, filled a thermos with coffee, and got in my car with one plan: disappear for a while. I drove north, windows down, music off, letting the cold air slap my face awake. No destination, just a full tank and the need to put distance between myself and the ghost of what was supposed to be. Around noon, I ended up at this quiet lake I hadn't visited since college. It was frozen over, still, peaceful. I stood at the edge for a long time, watching a single leaf skid across the surface like it too, didn't know where to land. That was supposed to be our wedding day. We had picked the venue months ago, an old library turned art gallery. She wanted string lights and vegan sliders. I wanted simplicity. We compromised on both, like we always did back then. My phone buzzed once. A message from her best friend. "Thinking of you today, you deserved better." No message from Tessa, not a whisper. And that, strangely, gave me peace. I sat by the lake until the sun dipped behind the trees, then drove back with no music, no tears, just clarity. I didn't need closure from her. I didn't need a dramatic showdown or grand apology. Sometimes silence is the most honest ending a story can have. The wedding didn't happen. The cake was never cut. The vows never said. But I showed up for something more important that day, myself. It was about a year later when I heard her name again, through someone I didn't expect. A former coworker of hers, Daniel, had transferred to my department and we ended up grabbing lunch one day. We talked about everything but her until he paused mid-bite and said, "Hey, weren't you engaged to Tessa?" I nodded, cautious. "Yeah, why?" He gave me this look. Half sympathy, half disbelief. "Man, she got fired. Big HR mess, something about sleeping with a client during a corporate retreat. It got ugly fast." My stomach didn't flip the way I expected. No triumph, no excitement, just stillness. "She broke contract," he added. "It was all over the office grapevine. Screenshots, rumors, you name it. She tried to deny it, but HR had receipts. Apparently, it wasn't even the first time." I just sipped my drink. Apparently, after our breakup, she had leaned hard into the party girl persona. New circles, fast nights, reputations crumbling behind her like dominoes. Her social media disappeared. Friends stopped tagging her. Word was she'd moved back in with her mom, quietly, like someone trying to disappear without headlines. I didn't celebrate. I didn't need to. Karma has a strange way of moving. Quiet, patient, almost surgical. It doesn't always show up in flames. Sometimes it just arrives when the mask slips and no one's there to catch it. I went home that night, sat on my balcony with a glass of wine, and listened to the rain. Not because I was happy she fell, but because I no longer carried the weight of wondering if she ever would. And in that small, still moment, I realized I was free. I never became one of those guys who swore off love. Even in the thick of the betrayal, even in the months after, I never said, "I'll never trust again." I just told myself the next time would be different. Not because people are perfect, but because I would be. I'd be different. Wiser, sharper. Not colder, just more careful about who I hand the keys to my heart. I started going to therapy, not because I was damaged, but because I didn't want to carry the wreckage into something new. I unpacked things I hadn't even realized were still buried. My need to always be the fixer, the way I confused peace with passivity, how I ignored red flags in the name of loyalty. It wasn't about Tessa anymore, it was about me. And slowly, things got clearer. I got better. I smiled more, laughed louder, spent time with people who didn't make me shrink to fit their comfort. I stopped feeling the need to explain myself. I didn't justify my healing. I didn't defend my boundaries. People would ask if I was dating again. I was. Carefully, quietly, no pressure, just meeting people with soft expectations and open eyes. And every now and then someone would ask, if she came back, said all the right things, would you ever take her back? I always give the same answer. No, not because I hate her, but because I love myself now. There's something powerful about walking away and not looking over your shoulder, about choosing peace over performance, truth over potential. I don't tell this story to get sympathy. I tell it because someone out there needs to know you're allowed to be done, even if you still miss them. I never keyed her car, never exposed her online, never sent the screenshots to her family. I thought about it. God knows I did. When I was sitting alone in that dark room, hearing my name twisted in group chats, painted as the cold fiancé who gave up too easily. There were nights I typed out paragraphs I never sent. Nights I imagined what it would feel like to burn her new life down the way she torched mine. But the truth is, I didn't need revenge, because revenge keeps you tied to the fire. Peace lets you walk away from the ashes. These days, I live in a quiet place just outside the city. 1 bedroom, bookshelf by the window. I started journaling again, something I hadn't done since college. I make coffee in the mornings, not for 2, just for me, and it tastes better than it ever did before. Some weekends, I drive out to that same lake, the one from what was supposed to be our wedding day. I sit on the dock with my shoes off, legs dangling over the edge, and just listen. Birds, wind, my own breathing. I don't think about her much anymore, not because I've forgotten, but because she no longer takes up space I need for better things. I used to think closure had to come from the person who broke you, that they had to explain why, apologize, hand you the ending you deserved. Now I know, sometimes closure is a door you build yourself. One you close with your own 2 hands, not because they asked you to, but because you're ready. I didn't get revenge, but I got my peace. And in the end, that was the better ending.